Hello, my name is Chris Bynon, and I'm the lead scientist of our Southwest Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation Project, or SAM for short, and I'll tell you today a little bit about our project. The meridional overturning circulation is illustrated by this schematic. The red colors here indicate warm upper ocean flows. The medium colors indicate mid-depth flows. And the blues and purples indicate deep ocean flows. This system is one of the main mechanisms through which the ocean moves heat around the globe and impacts our climate system. Changes in the meridional overturning circulation have been linked to things like precipitation pattern changes, changes in hurricane intensification, and changes in surface temperatures over large portions of the globe. As a result, this is one of the most important scientific topics that we're studying here at our lab. The main focus of our SAM project is here in the South Atlantic, just east of South America at 34.5 degrees south. In this region, the warm flows are carried southward in the Brazil current, and the cold deep flows are carried southward in the deep western boundary current, which is primarily below about 1,000 meters depth. In this region, the deep western boundary current is carrying in the neighborhood of 15 million cubic meters of water per second. To give you a sense of scale, that would fill the largest stadium that you can find in a few seconds. So it's an immense amount of water flowing around in this circulation cell. Variations in this is going to help us figure out how much heat is being carried in the system and how it may change over time. To study the meridional overturning circulation in this region, we use an instrument called an inverted echo sounder. Here in the photograph you can see the scientific part of the equipment is in this white sphere, and below it is an anchor made up of barbell plates. The instrument is deployed and sits on the bottom of the ocean for a period of up to 4 years making hourly measurements. We pass by with research vessels every 6 to 12 months and acoustically download the data from the instrument, only recovering the instrument at the end of each 4-year deployment when we put in fresh batteries and then put it back down on the bottom of the ocean. Inverted echo sounder works by sending out a sound pulse and listening as that sound pulse goes up to the sea surface, reflects, and returns to the instrument. Changes in the amount of time that it takes for this sound pulse to make this round trip, it gives us information about changes in the temperature and salinity of the ocean above the instrument. For the original SAM deployment, we had 4 locations that we selected, which are illustrated here in this map. We selected these locations based on historical measurements of temperature, salinity, and velocity in the region, and we chose these locations to try and help us best capture the Brazil current and the deep western boundary current, as both currents flow to the south. On the east side, you see 2 instruments that were originally deployed by the French in 2008 and maintained through 2010. Expanding the array into the ocean interior will allow us to better capture not only the meridional overturning circulation, but the heat and salt that it is carrying as it moves around the globe.
Hi, I'm Renelis Perez. I'm a CMIS scientist here at AOML, and I'm working in the Physical Oceanography Division. I use data from the SAM array to study the overturning circulation in the South Atlantic. I've also done modeling studies to try to determine the best way to augment the measurements that we're already making in the South Atlantic. What I'm showing here are 2 maps of velocity from 2 models. You can see from the surface velocity, blue indicates southward flow and red indicates northward flow. You have the North Brazil current and the Brazil current, and you can see that the present array is sampling across the Brazil current. And on the eastern side, you have the Benguela current, shown here by this brown northward flow, and you can see that the instruments on the eastern side of the boundary are sampling across the Benguela current region. Once we determined that 35 south was a great latitude to use, we then moved forward with trying to determine how many instruments we needed and where we should put them to best sample the flow along 35 south. So we started off with the full resolution of the model, and then we worked our way. We compared with where we were making measurements with the pilot arrays, so with 4 moorings on the western boundary and 2 moorings on the eastern boundary, and what would happen if we only sampled in the interior, what would happen if we more intensely sampled on the western boundary, and then what would happen if we more intensely sampled on the eastern boundary. Lastly, we looked at how could we best sample with moorings on the western boundary the eastern boundary, and in the interior. And we found out that we needed in the model about 20 moorings to get a good representation of the flow. Now when we're talking about the actual array that is out there in the ocean today, we've already expanded to over 20 sites. We have 9 instruments just off the coast of South America, and that includes the 4 SAM instruments. The Brazilian partners in this project have deployed an additional 5 moorings. On the eastern side, just off South Africa, our French partners have deployed 9 moorings, and our South African partners are planning to put in an additional 10 moorings. So the array has expanded. We now have very good resolution on the eastern boundary. We have great resolution on the western boundary, and where we are not yet sampling is in the interior. And the plan is to use technology that we're developing here in our laboratory. We plan to use data pods to instrument the interior, and this will give us the ability to only go out and service those instruments every 4 years, as opposed to on the western boundary and on the eastern boundary, where we have to go 1 to 2 times a year to collect data from those moorings.